And then the next level, and here, just as a little aside, in business, there are two major metaphors that business people use to communicate, military and sports. And interestingly enough, this is one of the reasons why sometimes women are at a disadvantage in the business world, because culturally men are brought up with sports and military analogies and women are less associated. But you think about, let's go the whole 9 yards, is we need to do a frontal attack, we need to do a better defense. Those are all military sports type terms. So just as a suggestion, it might be useful just to be familiar with that kind of language so that you understand what's going on. It's just interesting. There's a new metaphor that is gaining traction in the business world, and this one is the symphony metaphor. And rather than a coach or the general or the leader leading the troops through an offensive and doing plays, a symphony is more where you have highly trained professionals that are skilled at what they do, and the role of the leader is not to tell people what to do, but to give direction, set the tempo, set the pace, determine what the music is, and trust that the people who are under there are working cooperatively to achieve those goals. So again, metaphors are important. I've been reading a book recently by the God of Persuasion, and just talks about how important the language is to how we perceive the world and how we act and how we make decisions. But that's more than this class. So anyways, using this military analogy or this military language, I've seen people use these differently. Some call the big picture the goal, and some people call the big picture the objective, and I'm not going to worry about that, but let's just say there's a hierarchy, and for the purposes of this discussion, we'll talk the top of the hierarchy is an objective. An objective is what you want to do when you're done. What is the long-term accomplishment of the organization? We've talked a little bit about management by objective in this class. Objectives need to be measurable, relevant, time-bound, and specific. And measurable means numbers. And the idea is that if we achieve this, this is the success. So our objective is to be the leader in technology in our country. Within 5 years, we will be number 1 or number 2 in these markets. Those are long-term objectives, specific, measurable, and time-bound. And then below that are strategies. And again, some people switch these around. A strategy is something that you do that's going to help you make your objective. So there may be multiple strategies. So if our goal is to be number 1 or number 2, there may be a bunch of different strategies that we employ that eventually will get us to that position. And again, when we speak to strategic, we're generally talking about more than 1 year time horizon. So a strategy would be a major initiative that takes more than a year to accomplish, and the result of that will be significant progress towards achieving your objective. And then the last level is tactic, and these are short-term things that you do to achieve the strategies. And that's when we talk about execution. Execution happens at the tactical level. And this, I'll talk about this again. This has always been one of my issues with strategic plans, is we talked about it's easy to get agreement on the general, but it's hard to get agreement on the specific. And so we'll have the strategic planning process and involve all the stakeholders, and we'll say, in 5 years, we're going to be number 2 in our category, and go, yeah, good, good, good. And then you get to work on Monday and say, okay, so what do I do now? What do I do today that's going to, in 5 years? So this is where the tactics come in, is break it down step by step. What do I have to do to execute this strategy, which hopefully will take us to our objective? So, different levels of the organization have different levels of concern. Are you familiar with the term C-suite or C-level? So this is a term that's going around. So C is just like chief. So CEO, Chief Executive Officer, COO, Chief Operating Officer, CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, CFO, Chief Financial Officer, And the idea that in a corporate structure, this is the executive committee or the top decision-making group. So this would be top management. The responsibility is to set the vision and the mission. And if it is a conglomerate organization, just to determine which businesses we're going to be in, which businesses we're not going to be in, and then whatever corporate level objectives are, those become constraints or parameters for planning at the business unit level or planning at the functional area level.